Hey guys, welcome into the PuggoReborn channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the Fast Adaptation perk, giving you my thoughts and opinions as well as many others. What's that? A perk guide with other people? Yes sir. I didn't want it to be about just me and how I feel about the perk, but really the community and what they think about the perk, because I don't think it's one person that can convince everybody. I think it's a collective group of people. So what I decided to do was a roundtable in which I had 6 total guys together, and we individually gave our thoughts about it, then gave it a grade, and then kind of grilled each other a little bit to figure out where this perk actually lands. So if you do like that kind of stuff, in the description below is going to have all the timestamps so you can get right to the nitty-gritty that you care about. Without further ado though, let's get into this one. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you do like this content. Nonetheless, here we go. Fast Adaptation is a very interesting perk. It's a perk that is pretty linear, but has a lot of roots that the game doesn't tell you about. So let's go over what that is after the description. So what the description says is, gain an additional stacking 10% chance to hit with each attack that misses an opponent. Bonus is reset upon landing a hit. So essentially, it seems pretty cut and dry. If you miss a shot with your arrow, or if you miss a shot with your axe, your one-handed axe, two-handed, whatever you're using, you get a plus 10% to hit the very next turn. Okay, sounds good. However, here's some of the things the game doesn't tell you. So starting out, this is a good thing actually. When you go to strike somebody who's using a shield and you hit the shield, you still gain a stacking 10%. So if I miss, I get 10%. Let's say it went from 60 to 70. I miss again, you're at 80 the very next round, providing there's no morale check on either side. Now, here's where things kind of get a little fishy. Let's say you're using range, right? And you're shooting somebody with just a quick shot, and you miss the first shot, so you get a stack of 10. The next shot that you shoot, if there's a rock or a tree or a bush or any kind of inanimate object that you cannot step on, like a tile that you can't step on, if an arrow hits that, it considers it a hit. So you lose your stack, which is really weird. Why that happens, I don't have an answer for it, but it's something to definitely think about. Another thing that many people do know about is that when you are shooting at something and you hit one of the enemies next to them, that also depletes the stack. Now, let's get into the AoE, because this is a big thing that a lot of people don't understand. I've had this question, I've heard others that have this question. How does AoE work with Fast Adaptation? Well, a lot of the assumption is, in an AoE, there's 3 progressions where you hit 3 people, right? The first person in the front, and then 1 person in the back of the third AoE. If you miss the first person, a lot of the assumption is the very next person gets a 10%. If you miss that person, then you get a 20% on the last guy. That is unfortunately not the case. What does happen is, if you get a stack of 10% prior to that AoE, you get a 10% chance to equally hit all 3 of the enemies. Now, let's say of the 3 enemies, you miss the first one, you hit the second one, and you miss the third one. You'd almost expect to have a stack of 10% the very next time, because the last enemy that you tried to hit, you missed, which should originally give you a 10% chance to hit the very next attack. That is false. If you hit somebody within an AoE, you don't get the stack. So that's something to think about. And the final thing I want to go over with this perk before we get into the Puggo roundtable, it's 3-headed flails. I know there's 3 strikes that happen within 1 attack. Unfortunately, it's the same exact way as the AoE. It's literally, if you miss all the balls that are supposed to hit in one succession, if all of them miss, then you get a 10%. If one of the 3 balls hits somebody, you don't get the 10%. So it is an incredibly ineffective weapon with Fast Adaptation. With that being said, guys, I hope that does help, at least that side of it. Now let's get into the deep discussion and figure out how good this perk actually is and whether or not the community likes it or doesn't like it. Alright guys, and now we're in with the Puggo roundtable. We got a bunch of guys together. We're going to be talking about Fast Adaptation, our thoughts, our opinions, and maybe we'll sway each other, maybe not. That's perfectly fine. Maybe you've been swayed. That would be great. We're going to give every one of these guys are going to give a score from 1 to 5 on the perk, 1 being it's one of their favorite perks, 5 being they don't touch the perk, and we're going to go from there. Baba GANOUSH, you are going to have the floor. So whenever you're ready, go for it.
Alright, so fast adaptation. So the pros are it gives you 10% extra chance to hit. It's good for brothers with bad range and melee skill who do multiple hits in one turn. For example, Catal Dagger or someone who has Berserk. It can really help you like get the clutch hits if you missed and you really need to get that kill to save your brother. And the cons are you lose the bonus if you hit an object that is in the way, like a tree, but the game doesn't explain that to you. And it's not so good with it's not as efficient with bros who only hit once per turn. Yeah, because you have to wait a whole turn for it to proc, and it only procs if you miss. So and my rank is I give it a rank 3.
Okay. Any other thoughts on why would you like 3 because some guys can use it, some guys can't, or what? How would you use it?
Yeah, I would give it to a brother who has bad melee skill or range skill, because I don't think it's I don't think a brother with good skill in attack needs it.
Okay. And how about like ultra late game? Do you play usually for the ultra late game or late game?
I've started doing that now.
Okay. And would you consider using it in the ultra late game? Like, what's your stance on that?
Not really actually, because I will probably replace my brothers with bad range and melee skill. But at the start of late game, maybe if you kept your guys with bad melee skill or something, you can use it. But I will probably replace those guys to get placed for another perk instead.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, anybody got any questions or anything, or? Okay. All right. Well then, next one we're gonna have CarveaHole. You have the floor.
Alright, so fast adaptation, I'm giving it a 4. Because so when you have I play for late game. So late game bros have good attack skill, which is why you keep them, because they can actually hit things. So they're not going to be missing more than 1 or 2 attacks in a row anyway, just because they have 90 plus attack skill. So you don't need fast adaptation, because that means you're doing one of your 11 perk points on like a 20% chance that you miss 2 or 3 attacks in a row, which is really not worth it. Fast adaptation is best on bad bros with low attack skill, so it's really capped at being useful in the early game. It's useful on people who, if you make like a stun bot, someone who just runs around with like a mace and just stuns people, that can be kind of useful. But again, you don't really need that after mid game when you don't need to farm as much armor anymore. But the real thing that I think hurts fast adaptation is that it's the opportunity cost of what you're not taking. Because you have to drop a really good perk to take some extra hit chance. And when a bro already has high attack skill, that like extra hit chance once he misses really isn't that useful. There's other ways to reduce. If someone's got shield wall, you can get rid of the shield wall, or you could run around people and surround them so they lose. You get the adjacency bonuses. So there's multiple ways to get hit chance that's not fast adaptation. So I don't think it's very useful outside of very early game and on very bad brothers.
Okay. So then one of the questions I have for you with that is if, let's say you have a brother who has incredible defense, has like great all around, bro. Let's say you have like a beast slayer, right? And he got 1 star in melee. There was a potential of 90 melee skill, but you had 85, and it didn't seem like you might not even make 85. Is that a brother that you would scrap, or would you consider a perk like fast adaptation just because of the all-around stats and how good he is?
He's got at you can determine how high someone's going to be roughly
right
at level 1.
But
so what's he has at 85.
So yeah, let's say that you're getting to level 11. You're like 2 levels away. You pull a 2 and a 3 instead of it being like an 86 final because you had such a low draw per turn, per level up, that he ended up being 85. Is there a potential there for fast adaptation to shore up a brother like that going into the ultra late?
No.
Okay.
No. I'd either replace him or I'd probably just replace him, or I'd live with 85 aim and give him something else that's going to be useful.
Okay. Fair enough. Anybody got any questions? Or what was you said 4, right?
I said 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any brother at all that you would give to in the ultra late game? That's the only thing I'd have to ask then, with a 4, just being a 4.
No, it's early game for terrible people, and then it's stun bots. So if you keep a stun bot in the late game, I
Okay.
guess so, but I don't think you need to do that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, anybody else got any questions there?
Well, personally, maybe if I have a bannerman with really bad melee skill, I would give him fast adaptation so he can be a little useful, you know.
I find bannermans that have good attack skill because I have them constantly disarming.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Fair enough. Okay, well, that brings us to our next bad man here, Mr. Dragon.
Hello. So you want me to start?
Go for it, man.
I'll do ranking last, but I'll start saying that I don't use it anymore. I just don't find the space to put it. I've used it in my first few campaigns. But I think it could be useful on like archers or throwers that won't have enough range skill, but you want to use them because there's nothing better. Because they always get to shoot, and if they miss, they get a better chance. It's very, very hard to use an archer at their early levels. Besides that, for like fodder bros, you know the ones on the early game that you don't think they'll get into the late, so they need all the help they can get right now. Besides that, I don't really use it anymore, and I don't find a use for it. So I'll give it a 5 out of 5.
Oh, so it's a complete no-go. No archers or anything like that. You don't find you don't think it'd be good for that, or?
I don't. I think it's useful for like when you're starting to play the game and you don't know what to look for, and you have bros with like shitty skill, so you need to patch them up a little bit. But when you know what you're doing, I think there's no reason to take it.
Okay. Fair enough, fair enough. Straight right to the point. Anybody got anything for that? Any questions or anything? I think it's funny because when people, or when someone gives it a 5, to sway their mind has got to be like, it's got to be like going through the computer and like shake them like, come on, do it, you know? But yeah, no, it's if it's a 5, dude, it's a 5, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, fair enough. All right, next on the floor here is gonna be Shinobi. What do you got, man?
Well, man, first I just want to thank you for reaching out to your community, getting us all together, and making us a part of this thing. It's fast adaptation, something I used, my first couple of runs when I was very new to the game. A lot of perks I'll take just for fun. This isn't one of them. It was really good to get your feet wet and try to, like I used it to figure out when I was very early in the game what range of attack I wanted my guys to have. It's like, okay, so I'm missing pretty consistently with 60s, but that 70 and that 80, that's getting me somewhere. So, it was a good learning tool in the very beginning of the game.
Okay.
I think I would give it a 4.
So with a 4, man, so are you saying you'd only use it for early game brothers? Is that right, or?
I wouldn't even use it for early game brothers anymore. It served its purpose in just the first few runs I used it, just to kind of gauge where I wanted my brothers to be melee and ranged attack wise mid to late game. So I just kind of used it as a feeling out tool.
Fair enough, fair enough. All right, well, we're going to move on then. Anybody got any questions on that? Anybody want to grill them at all? All right, then we're going to move on to the next guy. All right, so the next one is going to be Snuck. Give me your thoughts on fast adaptation.
Yo, thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here with you guys. So, just from the start, I'm gonna give it a 3. For me, it's a 3. It depends on the brother. And what I mean by this is it depends on the brother, but just the brothers that I used before day 200. So on the just starting brothers, normal starting tanks, especially tanks, which usually they only have health and a lot of defense, and I don't actually put any points or too many points in melee skill, they immediately get like a fast adaptation. But I know those brothers will not surpass the 200, 250 maybe. Maybe I'm one of the last people that still uses archers, classical archers. I always have one in my crew, even if it's a lone wolf. I have him until day 200, 250, and then I just I just disband him. It's very good on those archers, and it's giving me a lot of bonuses if I combine it with other perks like crippling strikes or I don't know, anticipation. I feel it works really well with archers and with tanks. What I need to specify is that I always avoid the brothers that have this perk to attack like bandits or people with shields. I always avoid that because I feel like I'm wasting his turn. If it's a tank and he meets another guy with shield, just shield wall or whatever, tank that blow, let him move on. And one more thing that I think one other person already mentioned, I don't remember who. I never put it on two-handers, only on a guy with like a spear or like a weapon that doesn't take too much stamina. And I make sure he makes use, doesn't hit very well, and you improve his second, third hit or arrow if it's an archer. So for me it's a free, but
Okay.
I have to mention it's not for ultra late game. Not. It's just day 200, 250 max. That's after that I just disband the guy.
Okay.
I think, yeah, that's all for me.
Okay. No, I think that's fair enough. I think you hit every basis. I think the big things that were standing out is those two-handers. You don't use it for two-handers. You miss one time, you're only getting a 10% compared to a weapon where you can strike twice. I think is what you were saying there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. Fair enough. I think that's good. Any questions from anybody?
Yeah. So, on your late game tanks, do you take fast adaptation?
No. If I have a
On
late,
your early game tanks, how often do you attack?
quite often because they don't have the big armor. They don't have they are tanks just because they have lots of health and they have a shield, and I can put them in front just to tank some hits.
Okay.
Okay. Good deal. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Next one is going to be Robert. Robert, what do you think about fast adaptation? What do you think about fast adaptation, man?
As a guy who's watched your channel and I've never played the game myself, I think fast adaptation just seems like something that you wouldn't really use at the end of the game because it just seems like you're prepared for your guy to kind of suck. If you're at the end of the game, you guys like a 70 or 80 weapon melee or something like that, yeah, then why would you buy some perk where you expect him or just something to? It's just like, I guess it's like if you buy a perk that gives them extra EXP at the beginning, but then you lose out on the slot. So if you're trying to maximize all your guys in that, I think you just prepare for them to hit and miss anyways. But if a guy's gonna be a throwaway character like previously said, like Archer or something like that, then I'd say yeah, go for it, because you're gonna have to just sit in the back and keep trying to hit anyways. He doesn't even have to move and stuff like that, yeah. So you just keep shooting at the enemy, just whittle them down with fast adaptation. But if it's like a big heavy ass dude who rolls in an RPG, then you're gonna build him to the end of the day. So it's just if he has 50-50 chance to hit and he hits a truck, then it doesn't really matter if he misses if he hits once in a while. That's all I have to say because I don't really know much about the game.
Okay. Do you have what would your grade be for it then? 1 to 5. What would you?
I'd say it's a solid 3, it's 3.5. Because it'll help. It looks like it's like a perk that's a good crutch from early game till mid game, but late game it just doesn't seem very viable.
All right, so fair enough on that then. All right, so here's going to be my thoughts on fast adaptation. I might be a little unconventional here, but I gotta say, so fast adaptation starting out is going to be a 3 for me. There's some interesting things to fast adaptation that I find worthy of all stages of the game, and I know that's not going to be the popular thing. The number one thing is I feel it's the perfect perk when it comes to your early game brothers, because if they're if they're pretty much throwaway brothers and whatnot, I don't care if they live or die. I care about them hitting just causing some sort of damage, so when they do die, my other guys can step in and take them out. Pretty much the early game, it's for me, I think it's great. When you get into the mid game, there's certain brothers that you find, and this is, in my opinion, I find a lot of brothers where they are solid all around. Like Beast Slayers in particular, I've had it where I've ended up with an 87 melee skill, and while I look at the 10 level progression of going from 87 up to 97, I get why you wouldn't want to have fast adaptation. The only thing for me is, as I transition to the late game, there's a lot of things that you, like from going from a shot that's a 64% chance each time and lose it to RNG, to be sure that next 10% is going to be like 74, and God forbid you miss that, you get 84. I've had it. I was just playing last night even on my lone wolf run, and I had that same exact situation. I missed, and I found, not to say that that's the perfect scenario to have fast adaptation, but it worked really well for me. I don't think that it's meant for two-handers in the way of you miss one shot and now the next one you get that extra 10. It is awesome with AoE, regardless of how that looks. When you use an AoE, it's not, a lot of people think that it's the first swing, the first person it connects with, or the first person it misses, you get a 10% for the next person, and then the next person. No, 10% through the whole swipe of that AoE. That is pretty cool, but again, for having a one-shot weapon, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, because you're not really gaining much through a long progression. But when you have a duelist, for instance, I feel like a duelist is really affected because you're taking two shots. If you miss one, or you're going against the monolith even, if you miss that shot at a 64 and have a 70% shot, which could change the game, every time you lose a brother, it seems like it happens when you're like one round from winning, and that one shot can make the difference. I feel like I've seen it where guys with 90, 95 melee skill still have a low chance to hit, even with like the nomads with their dodge and stuff. Even with I don't know, just some like champions, for instance. Champions is another example where you have a sword master who has 120 melee defense, and you can sit there and swing at 5% chance, and you say, well, you need archers for that. So you do have your fallback, at least being able to shoot them or whatever. But again, there's another case where we switch over to archery, and every time you miss with those double shots with crossbows, or for instance handgun bros that you go into the ultra late game, they always are going to proc that 10%, especially the handgun. And so, like a sniper build where you have bullseye with fast adaptation, missing somebody through the line like a necromancer or a trying to think of some other ones like a hexen or something like that, you have such a high percentage to jump and kill that priority target, which ultimately can change a whole fight from being grueling to minuscule. And so I get that it's not the perfect perk, but I give it a 3 because this is not me saying I would use it on any or all bros. It's that depending on the scenario for that bro, I think it can be really, really damaging. The best enemies in the game have fast adaptation. Necro Savants, you have, as I say that, Master Archers, any champion has fast adaptation. It matters. It matters because when you get hit by them, it's devastating, and you know that you're building on melee defense. So that's kind of a jump bing 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 to the next thing. But I think it is viable. I think it's viable through all stages of the game, even if it's not the perfect perk. And I admit there's other perks I would rather have over this perk, but that's not to diminish a unique fun build compared to a mid-max meta build. And that's my stance on it. So, anybody have any questions? Okay, And then anybody want to talk about just general discussion here? Anybody have anything they want to say about it? Was anybody changed? Did anybody have a different outlook on it?
Like,
I
how
think you were
much?
Yeah.
pretty spot on.
Oh, go ahead. We'll go start with Baba.
Yeah, I think you were pretty spot on. I agree with what you said.
Okay.
Yeah, Puggo, I have a couple, not like a quick question, so I kind of want to like discuss this.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I feel like what you were talking about, where your bro with 95 melee skill, still would like fast adaptation because he still hits on like a 60 against a noble or something. So what that argument means to me is that your entire team would have fast adaptation, because ideally your entire team would each individually be full of those guys with 95 melee skill that are still rolling on 60s. So, but you say you don't want everyone taking fast adaptation. So at what point is this a crutch for this bro, or is this is good for anyone because no one's rolling on 95s all the time?
Well, like I said before, this perk is a fun, unique perk. It's not a mid-max meta perk where you're going to be like, this is the one that I want to go for. The way I see it is, if you have a champion and somebody tells me, hey, I put fast adaptation on my champion who's using a two-handed cleaver or is using a weapon that is striking twice. I had this one named Mace that was incredible, and yes, my brother had, that brother had 107 skill. And I still found it. I got it early on because I wanted to try it out, and it worked wonders for me. If I missed once, the next shot felt like it was always guaranteed. And I had another brother that was very similar to him. He had like 100 melee. He didn't have it, and I could easily see the two when they go to strike, and I personally could see the difference in striking something. Now, does that mean that it's meant for everybody? No. But if somebody was to take it, I wouldn't say that that's a terrible choice. I just think that there's other perks that I would probably go to first. But for the sake of trying it, I found it being very effective.
What would you drop?
I'm sorry, say it again?
As to what would you drop for fast adaptation? Like if you took those two dudes you're just talking about, what did you drop on the one?
It depends on how I'm building. I mean, are we talking about with a guy who has like 100 melee or like 95 melee, or are we talking about like the other scenario with 85?
Yeah, like if you have one guy with 95 and one guy with 85, and they're the same build, what do you?
I'd be more willing to do it on the 85. But if I did it on an 85, it depends on how I'm building or what build I'm going with. A perk that I could see somebody dropping, if somebody is going for the, let's say, gotta think of a perk that's really most people. Okay, let's say Colossus. If I have a brother that has, for instance, I like getting Lumberjacks. Lumberjacks have usually around 65 health. If I got a Lumberjack and he was really good in the health category where after a few level ups there was room to give him more health where he's over 70, I'm not one of those guys who thinks you need to have 100 health to be effective. I'm one of those people that think if you're over 70 you're doing fine. I've done both ways, and I honestly, when you get to pure hit points, unless you're using nimble, it all doesn't matter because a two-handed weapon swiping you can do over 100 damage and you're done. So that's my personal thing compared to shooting through armor. That's a whole nother discussion. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because if I have a brother who's over 70 hit points, I would be okay going from Colossus over to fast adaptation because I know what I got in my brother's hit points and where I'm comfortable. So something like that. That's just me thinking on tier 1 perks. But that doesn't mean that I value fast adaptation more than I value Colossus. That's a whole nother argument. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So anybody else, or?
Something that I was thinking about while we were having the discussion is fast adaptation and a three-headed flail.
I can tell you this. I already know. If you're using a three-headed flail, it doesn't work for individual strikes. It literally only works for the full one strike.
God, that seems like a really big missed opportunity there.
Well, see, and the reason they did it that, because I looked this up, modders ended up finding this out. When you hit something, it's considered a one-strike deal. It's the same thing with AoE. I always had the impression, a while ago, I had this impression that when you use an AoE, it would be, if you miss the first guy, the next guy that it swings to, you're going to get a 10%. If it misses that guy, heaven forbid, it goes to the next. Instead, you get a 10% through the whole progression. If you think about it, that's not actually... I don't think that that's terrible, but what AoE weapon are you going to use that you get 2 strikes on? And the other thing, too, is, like, that's why I don't... Like, if I have a handgun brother, I don't see a reason in the world why not. I think fast adaptation was meant for that weapon because you're never going to hit every single target. And if you do, well then great. But if you don't, you always get a plus 10% to your range skill every single time. And sometimes you get lucky where it procs 20%. I have no idea why, but every 10 shots you might get that. So,
Man, that sounds like bread and butter right there.
and that's why I love it. You go against, you use that against, for instance, like goblins. It shreds goblins. It absolutely shreds goblins. And so if you have a better chance to hit those dirty little bastards, you're going to be looking pretty good.
And, you know, it's not a perk, but man, the handgun is fun. There's nothing like shooting 9 nobles, just watching their line shred.
Yeah. Well, we'll have another
And
discussion for that at
that's
some
short.
point. But
There's nothing like shooting.
yeah, right. Yeah, in general, yes. You know, and that's the same thing. Just speaking on the shooting aspect, that's why I like Bullseye with fast adaptation for a sniper-esque build to hit priority targets. If you have 20 I can tell you this is just my personal opinion, but if you have 20 brothers to swap in and out, I'll be honest, there's always like 3 brothers that literally ride the pine the whole time. They rarely ever see the field. And I would rather use one of those 3 spots that I never use those brothers for a guy that may come in situations, but being able to snipe out a necromancer, being able to snipe out, and you can do it with a crossbow still on a priest. I've done it before. It's not the easiest thing in the world because it's going to take a few shots, but like the throwing axes, if you're up on a hill and you can throw that axe through the line and kill a priest, if you can hit the priest with that weapon and have that extra chance, it can change a fight just like that. And so that's where I'm coming from with fast adaptation. That's why I'm like I said, I'm against the grain, and I don't blame anybody for not using it, period, because there are perks out there that I personally value, that most of the community values more than fast adaptation. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think you raised a nice case when you mentioned two-handed cleavers, which are both two-handed and 2 strikes per turn, so it could be useful there. Between that and the gunner builds, I think you've swayed me a little bit, so I'll change mine right up to 4 out of 5.
Very good. Wow, that I'm actually surprised by that, because I was just saying before, if you rate something a 5, it's actually pretty difficult, because people, and just from what I've seen, most people are really, this is how it is type of thing. Like I just can't do it. I can't, you know what I mean? So I respect you coming forth and even saying that too. So that's cool.
So you made the great point for him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead. I'll let Dragon go ahead and finish your thought there. What were you saying?
I'll wrap up real quick and
Yep.
let's not talk because because of what you people said, it's not completely useless, so it doesn't deserve a 5 out of 5. So yeah, I hand it over to you, Snuck.
Okay, Snuck.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I just checked one of my saves, and yeah, I had taken fast adaptation on handgunner.
Okay.
And it was a handgunner, but I also had some throwing axes.
Okay.
So he was just quickly changing, and it actually worked pretty fine. I remember, but this was immediately after the DLC, so I don't know exactly why I didn't mention this. Awesome, and you made a really good point with the handgun. Really good point. I think from now on all my handgunners will get this, just because it works so well. I just remembered it was 2 saves ago, so
Well,
yeah.
Awesome, man. There's one more thing I want to get at you guys about. I forgot to add this in for one of my thoughts on fast adaptation and its dagger builds. If somebody was just having fun and wanted to have a brother dedicated to a dagger, not like the cross builds like a mace and dagger, but just pure dagger, it's a great thing for brothers that have incredible initiative, incredible melee defense, and again, you're at like 85 melee because you get 3 strikes with the dagger, with the cuddle dagger. Think about that. If you miss the first one, you get a 10%. If you miss 2 of them, at least that last shot, the odds of you missing that shot is incredibly low. Also, if you're using overwhelm with that brother and you're stab, 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 that's 3 overwhelms even if you miss. Not to say, like, that's pretty bad, but think about going against a champion. If you're going one-on-one with a champion and you have a dagger and you miss, but you debuff, that's incredible. Because you're gonna get that hit, you're gonna be making a shockwave against them. And I don't know if you guys saw, but I do have a video up that I beat the Mad Barbarian with the Cuddle Dagger. And the reason ultimately I beat him with the Cuddle Dagger, and he didn't hit me one time, and it was because I had that overwhelm and just kept stabbing him to death. So there's another case where fast adaptation can be really nice if you have a brother who has all the skill to make a great dagger duelist, but just misses the mark at 90 melee or whatever. It's just a great kind of fallback, especially against champions. So that's my final thoughts on it. But anybody else want to throw some out there? Anything? Okay.
Okay. From a novice perspective, I'd like to ask you guys. Do you reckon fast adaptation, if you build your guys like your range guides to surely hit after a couple of misses, yeah, or that compared to like just building guys where you just sure they're gonna hit or you're prepared to lose anyways and stuff like that, what do you reckon actually has more effect on your ammo and overall logistics?
I would,
like, in terms of like being spent and stuff like that.
I mean, if you think about it, if every single time I go to shoot a bow or a crossbow, if every arrow comes with the notion that if I miss, I'm getting a 10% the very next shot, it depends on your logistically how you look at it. Is that valuing the arrow anymore? What do you guys think on that? Like, just to...
Like, I don't really understand it. Like, how do you mean?
Well, if I'm right, Robert, you're saying that does fast adaptation give ammunition a buff? Does it give any kind of buff to that aspect, right? Like, because you're going through, you have 10 shots. Is that going to help?
Yeah, I'm asking,
waste?
like, do you reckon it's like it gives you more bang for your buck, or
Right.
do you reckon you waste more if you have your perk on for your guys?
And that's
Yeah, well,
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, certainly, because like if you miss, you just wasted some money because you probably bought that ammunition, but it's not like a big loss because you get like 50 ammo for 100. But if you just keep missing and missing, I mean, it adds up, but it's not like a big money loss. I don't really know what to say. Like,
Well, think of it like this:
Yeah.
every arrow, it costs 100. If we're talking crowns, it costs 100 crowns for 20 arrows. All right, so that's like what is that? That's $5 or 5 crowns an arrow, right?
no, I think it's 50 for 100.
Or 50, or is it 50 for 100? Am I going crazy? No, I'm going
pretty
crazy.
sure it's 50.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm thinking I got tools and that mixed up. But either way, if we're just basing it on 100 crowns, obviously it fluctuates, but I'm just saying at base level, it probably doesn't matter in terms of what you're spending or how you're receiving it. But if you're talking about the proficiency of a brother having only 10 arrows or 5 axes to throw or whatever, if one of those are missed and the next shot gives you that 80% or that 90% chance to hit, I don't know. It's up for the person who's using it to really make that judgment call. I think it's worth it personally, but that's because I use a lot of sniper-esque builds where I'm trying to hit a priority target. I think anytime you shoot a weapon, you're looking, okay, for anybody who's using an archer or any kind of throwing weapon or anything, tell me when you're doing it, you don't look for a specific target. You're looking for archers, you're looking for polemen, you're looking for somebody who's in trouble. Am I right, or do you just shoot aimlessly at people?
Yeah, I do try to find a specific target to attack.
So if you can hit something that is beneficial to your squad, I don't see why you wouldn't put more value behind fast adaptation for that reason. That's just, but that again is just my opinion. You know, everyone's going to have a different outlook. Other people might say, well, I'd rather have, you know, some other perk instead of that. And that's where I say it's perfectly fine. That's why I don't value it as the #1 perk. It's still a 3 in my book. It's situational, and it's fun.
It's situational.
What's
It's
that?
what I wanted to say. It's situational because, for example, even with a handgun or an archer, even if the priority is the leader of that band or whatever, if it has a shield or if it has a big armor, it's gonna be difficult to actually do something to him.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
So it's situational. It's nice to have. It's nice against a certain kind of enemies, but even if that is your priority, you're not gonna do anything to him if he has a big shield or a big armor. It's just a waste of perk there. That's why it's a free for me. Also, it's a situational perk.
Right. I will say this though: there are a lot of enemies in the game where it's incredibly effective with the handgun. You look at orcs, dude. Orcs and goblins get eaten alive, and you might say, well, what about like orc warriors? The ones with exposed heads, guys. If you use headhunter with archery or with your handgun, it's incredible. Because as long as you hit the head one time, think of it. You have a 6 AOE cone, and if it hits one person's head, you proc headhunter. So if you hit an orc with an exposed head, and with that 50% extra damage to their health, that's incredible. And you have the potential of causing an injury that could be like a concussion. Because there's the severe concussion and then there's the fractured skull. Both of them are both equally negative 50% towards all of the health. Or, I mean, to all their traits. So that's where I say if you're always getting a 10% with a handgun and you can make shields near irrelevant because of how high your range skill is, that's beautiful. That's just, but again, that's my side of it. You know, I think it's anytime you're talking about pool of health, you're causing morale checks, you're causing injuries, you know, and it's very likely. So
you would want to pair that with crippling strikes.
You could. The only thing that I worry about is that how many people do have exposed heads. You know, and because you have to hit a certain threshold of hit points in order to cause that, and unfortunately for handguns, you're talking 35 to 70. Is it 75? I think it's 35 to 75. And every shot, like when you shoot, everybody collectively gets the same amount of damage. It's just a matter of if it hits them, and you get 100% effectiveness against armor. But if you roll a 35, think of this: if you roll, this is why I love it against goblins. Goblins have roughly. I'll put the graphics on here just in case I am wrong, but I believe they have about 45 health. So if you shoot a goblin, hit them in the head with this gun at the lowest point, 35. What's 50% of 35? It's like 16, 17 damage, right? Which means that if it hits a goblin's head, it's an insta-kill. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's...
I did have...
Sorry. No, go ahead. I'm going to actually pull it up because I want to be 100% sure. I'm pretty sure the health is...
Yeah, well, I did have a
it's 40. It's 40 real quick. It's 40. So pretty much every time you hit a goblin in the head, it's an instant kill with the handgun. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even with a little bit of armor too. Most of them don't have head armor, or it's incredibly light. So yeah, it's an instant kill on goblins.
Well, I had a handgun with fast adaptation and crippling strikes. I don't know if he had headhunter, but he still caused a lot of damage. Like he made them breathe in fire. That debuff, whatever it's called.
Right.
And yeah, all of that. It was very effective, especially against goblins and orcs, as you said.
Yeah, and that's where I'm saying it's totally... I mean, it'll work against a lot of opponents that are, you know, have exposed heads, especially because of that extra damage you're doing, which is breaking that threshold. But ultimately, a lot of the enemies that you do face have head armor that you'll have to really significantly grow past. You'll have to go past that threshold, and yeah, it's for me. I think it's a great perk, and we'll talk about that soon with the next perk guide here. But yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. We'll get into that one soon. So anybody else? Okay. All right, well, we'll end it there, guys. I hope you did enjoy this this perk guide for fast adaptation. If you did enjoy this, please hit the like, subscribe, of course. And thank you guys. Thank everybody. I just thank you all you guys for being a part of this. I didn't want this to be about my thoughts, but about the community's thoughts. And if one of us could sway somebody else, I think that's awesome. That's just growth. So thank you guys for coming out here. All right. Well, all right. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.